sort of balances it out. So that's one another aspect. And most importantly, I know that this is going to be very attractive for both, a lot of you. GRE, along with, various aspects of your profile, often attracts a lot of attractive, like really good scholarships, like merit-based scholarships. So that kind of like makes us understand that GRE does still have a place, and getting a good GRE score would be really beneficial for you. But, when I say good GRE, in the recent past, especially post-pandemic, a lot of people have been getting very good GRE score, thanks to this GRE testing scam that has been going on. But I want to strongly bring to your attention that recently, some of the universities like ASU, that's the Arizona State University, they have specifically mentioned on their website that they will not be accepting the at-home testing. So that means, that the way around the test, that's not going to happen anymore. So your best bet is to actually practice, prep right, and get to a really good score. Okay. Now, when I say a good score, everybody really thinks about a 320 plus. And a 320 plus can look really daunting to you guys. But me, Ram, Sean, we're all here to tell you that it's not with the right kind of prep. And let's actually kind of like hear it from our finest experts who are with us right now. Now, to talk about Ram, he is the academic head of Mania, the Princeton Review. And he is the heart, brain, and soul behind the academic team that delivers absolute quality. He has over 20 years of experience behind him in education and test prep. And he is a serial test taker, to be honest, and has always scored 99 percentile and above. And there could not be anyone better to, help you understand how to get to a perfect quant score in the GRE. Welcome, Ram.
Hi, Seema.
Good to have you. So talking about Sean, he is unique in his own right. He too has over 20 years of experience helping students on their journey to a great GRE score. The unique aspect is that he is a dual certified Princeton Review trainer besides being a senior academics manager. And one of the things is that with his expertise and experience, he makes sure that the learning that the students get is both engaging as well as enjoyable. Sean, a big welcome to you as well.
Thank you so much, Seema. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the session.
Right. Yeah. So quick kickstart, guys. Okay, so starting off with verbal, let's directly dive into something that students often feel, the most challenged with. So my question to you, Sean, is that students often view the verbal part a little apprehensively. They feel that it's going to be hard. That's the first thing that comes to their mind. So is it really as challenging as it looks?
Seema, this for you and for everybody, we've seen, right? Nothing really is challenging if you know the right approach towards working towards something, right? And I think one of the major challenges that people face is that there are a lot of things that go on in the market, on Google, everything. People get to know a lot of things, and there are a lot of myths about it. But if somebody knows what is the correct approach and knows what is actually getting tested, then it is easy for you to prepare and get the right questions out and get the right answers quickly. So if I just give a quick overview, now this is for everybody here. Guys, all of you, I think, probably know that GRE is a sectional adaptive test in which you have 2 sections of verbal and 2 sections of math. One section, how you perform in the first section of the verbal or the first section of the math will decide the complexity of the subsequent section of whether verbal or math, right? So if your first section is done really well, then your second section will be harder on average. If your first section is not done well, your second section will be easier on average. Having said that, our goal is to ensure that every question that we come across, we give it to the best of our ability, so that by the time we reach our second module, we are already at a good complexity level of the exam. Now, Broadly, the verbal section is divided into two major parts, that is vocabulary and reading comprehension. And I think vocabulary in itself has 10 questions out of 20 in each module, and the remaining 10 questions are for reading comprehension. Even within vocabulary, you have the split where you have two types of questions, sentence equivalence and text completion. Now, I think this is where many students feel that we have to know a lot of words. And so vocabulary and reading comprehension are the two major aspects. If you know your vocab well, if you know your reading comprehension skills, if you then getting the answers correct isn't going to be difficult. Seema, you're on mute. I think you're on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. So are there any question types that actually test this vocabulary bit in the GRE?
Sorry, could you just repeat the question?
Are there any specific question types that actually particularly test these vocabulary in GRE?
Yes, there are. So, like I said, sentence equivalence and text completion will be a test of vocabulary.
Okay,
right?
okay.
And those are 10 questions in the verbal section of each module that you will get of each of the verbal section.
Right.
And I can probably show you a question just to help everybody understand.
Right, but so one question that popped up, and I know that a lot of students ask this as well. To actually deal with the sentence equivalence and text completion, do students have to mug up like a zillion words to do really well on these questions?
I mean, it's not practically possible because no matter how many words you learn up, you will forget at some point of time, right? Therefore, while you need to know a certain amount of words, at least words which are very common on the GRE, but you also need to be equally efficient in understanding the meaning and context, what the sentence is actually asking you to do. If you know that well, and if you can in your mind, understand what the sentence is looking for, then you can easily get the right answer, right? So it's a combination of knowing a certain amount of words and reading well to understand the meaning and context. And that is where our Princeton review approach is so efficient, the way we show it, right?
So does that mean that it's not completely, you don't just mug up or you just don't learn dictionary meanings as is, right? I mean, that's what I gather.
Absolutely, because even if you try to learn a dictionary, it's, like I said, practically not possible.
Right.
And no matter how many words you learn, unless you know how to use it, you will never be able to remember. So that's also extremely important.
Yeah, true.
Right?
So you've talked about understanding meanings in context, or to deal with questions, and actually following certain strategies to get to the right answers as well.
Because
that is what is going to get to the right answers, right?
Absolutely.
Could you help us understand? Could you help the students understand that with this, it does not have to be as hard? Like Ankur on the chat actually says, verbal section is too hard. Show Ankur also why it might not be that hard.
Yeah, sure. So let me show you one question.
Sure.
So if you can see on the screen, this is a sentence equivalence question. Now, just to explain what is sentence equivalence, you have one blank in which you have to, there are 6 answer choices, as you can see here on the screen, and 2 answer choices will fit into the blank. Now, these 2 answer choices could be either be synonyms, or they could have the similar meaning in context to what is required in the blank, right? Now, whenever our Princeton review approach, like I keep saying, is so efficient, is we first try and deep dive and analyze what the sentence is about. So we have a blank there. So we will, everybody try and understand who or what that blank is talking about. I hope, Seema, you can see what I'm writing on the screen.
Yes, Sean, absolutely clear.
All right. What insight are we getting from the sentence about the blank, what the blank wants? And what we are also going to try and figure out is whether by understanding the meaning, we can come up with our own word for the blank.
Right.
Because when we do that, it becomes much easier for us to go to the answer choices and see which one could be the right answer, right? So let me read the question. Or Seema, would you like to read the question?
Yeah, I can do that for you.
Yeah.
So as CEO, Mr. Blovband distinguished himself primarily because he was more dash or blank than his peers. He remained calm and resolute even during times of immense volatility in the market at large.
Yeah. So thank you, Seema. So if I have to ask all of you, if you can put in the chat window, who or what is the blank talking about? About whom is the blank talking? Anybody? You can type in the chat window. Yeah, Ajinkya. Yes, Aman, absolutely. So you're absolutely right. It's talking about Mr. Bluffbank, isn't it? Okay. And what do we get to know about Mr. Bluffband? What insight do we get about Mr. Bluffband from the sentence? If you can just quickly summarize and tell me.
So Aman says he is calm.
Absolutely. He is calm. So it says he remained calm and resolute even during times of immense volatility. That entire portion, right? So what does this tell us about Mr. Bluffband? That he's a calm and resolute person. So if you go back to the blank and see, Mr. Bluffband distinguished himself primarily because he was more dash than his peers. So based on the quality that we have seen about Mr. Bluffband, what do we feel about his quality? How was he distinguished from his peers? Can I use the same words that are there given in the sentence? So when you look for your own word, guys, it's not necessary you have to rack your brains and find some word extraordinary. Okay, you can just reuse any word that is there which fits in, right? So I can easily say I'm looking for words which would be similar in meaning to calm and resolute, right? He was more calm and resolute than his peers, right? So something which is similar in meaning. Now, if you go to the answer choices, you can see that based on what we know, we can eliminate a few answer choices. Can you guys tell me what answer choices can I eliminate? Absolutely, Aman. Yeah. Yeah. Naive, we can eliminate. Definitely. Good job. Prosperous, we can eliminate. Okay. Anything else that we can eliminate? Dismayed. Very good, Anurag. I mean, dismay is a negative word, isn't it? We are looking for something positive. He was calm and resolute. Now you're left with three words and I need to fit in two into the answer choices. So now this is where obviously some, yeah, I understand, Aman, which is natural. Now this is where obviously some amount of vocabulary will be important, right? So just to tell you, the word prescient, you see this word prescient, that means having prior knowledge of something. So that necessarily does not fit in here. So your correct answers for this question are stalwart and steadfast, right? Somebody remained calm and resolute. Now, guys, now see, you just came across three new words, right? Probably stalwart, steadfast, prescient. Now, please remember every time you're doing a GRE question, now these are very common GRE words. You come across these words, please ensure that you make a note of them in your vocab diary. Now, what is a vocab diary? Maintain a list of new words that you're coming across, write down the meanings. And whenever you get time, please write sentences with those words. Now, how will this help? Once you write sentences with the words, guys, that is when you're going to remember how to use this word the next time. Okay. And that is definitely going to help you. So this was a sentence equivalence question that is very common. You get around 4 of such questions in every verbal section.
So,
right?
Sean,
Yeah.
I think this is interesting. I mean, same words can actually be used in different contexts, as you mentioned.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So Anurag says, but it means powerful.
Absolutely. Now, if you look at the literal meaning of stalwart, probably it may mean powerful. But then even if you look at the meaning in context, you need to be powerful in order to remain resolute in your decision making, isn't it? So it talks about power of the mind, power of making the right decision, power of sticking to your plan, sticking to the right decision. So that is very, very important.
Right. And I think it also kind of is used in context where we say that, one person is very firm in their decision, and that's pretty
absolutely
much means also.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, Shanta Mishra says, can you give me classes regular basis? Oh yeah, absolutely. Once you're done with this. So you talked about another question, which could have more than one blank. So
Yeah. So I'll show you another question, another type of vocabulary question, which is called text completion. Now, text completion questions, actually, you can get around 3 kinds of text completion questions. It may have a single blank, or 2 blanks, or 3 blanks. Okay. If you have 2 or 3 blanks in the question, for each blank, there'll be associated 3 answer choices, out of which 1 is correct. However, if you have a single blank text completion question, it will be you'll have 5 answer choices. So I picked up this question as a reference.
Okay.
So there are 2 blanks here. So once again, Seema, if you could read the question for us.
Oh, absolutely.
That'll be great.
Moby Dick, now regarded as a dash work of American literature, was virtually ignored when it was first published. And it was not until many years later that Melville's achievements were blank.
Right. So we have 2 blanks here. Now, guys, please remember, just because there are 2 blanks, it does not necessarily mean you have to start with the first one. Okay. You can start with whichever blank you understand first. Okay. Based on the meaning that is given. Okay. So we're going to follow the same approach that we followed for the sentence equivalence question, where we are going to find out who or what each blank is talking about, whether we get any insight about what is being said from the rest of the sentence. And of course, we're going to try and put in our own word for the blank. So look at it carefully, guys. It says Moby Dick, now regarded as a dash work of American literature, was virtually ignored when it was first published. So what does this tell you about Moby Dick? By the way, has anybody heard of Moby Dick?
I have.
Okay, Moby Dick is a very famous novel. It's a classic, actually.
Yeah.
But nonetheless.
Wayne?
Melville.
Melville. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So now you see, if you look at the sentence, there are some keywords in the sentence, and see, these keywords are actually very simple words. I'll show you why. It says now regarded. What does that straight away tell you? That earlier it was not regarded as something, isn't it? And what do we get later in the sentence? Was virtually ignored when it was first published. You see all these important terms that are there, which gives a lot of insight about the sentence as a whole. So who or what is the first blank talking about? Obviously, it's talking about Moby Dick. What insight do we get about this piece of work? It was virtually ignored when it was first published, right? So as of now, if you want, you can try up and put in one word for the blank. If you're not sure, you can move on and read the rest of the sentence and see whether that later gives you an idea. If I read the second part of the sentence, it said it was not until many years later that Melville's achievements were blank. So the second blank is obviously talking about Melville's achievements, right? Now, what does it say? It was not until many years later. You see, again, some important words being used here. That it was virtually ignored. So you can obviously, the insight that you get continues from the first blank. And it was not until many years later. So what happened many years later? It was first virtually ignored. So can I say then it was not until many years later that Melville's achievements, if I'm looking for my own word, can I say they were recognized finally? Right? Do you all agree? Yeah, I'll come to that. I'll come to the answers, Aman, Avinash. I'll come to the answers. But let's try and understand the sentence in a little more detail. So what about the first blank though? What could be your own word for the first blank? Anybody? What is the first blank looking for? Celebrated. Touchstone. Okay. Anything simpler? Okay. You want to keep it recognized only. Okay, we can keep it recognized, no problem. And we will see how we can match that. Okay. So let's look at the answer choices. Now you have 3 answer choices for the first blank: protracted, tedious, seminal. Which one do you think is the right answer? What does protracted mean, by the way? Yeah, protracted basically means something that is spread over a wide area, right? So does that really match what we are saying here? Which ones can I eliminate, guys? Tell me. Okay, Shubham, we can eliminate tedious. Agreed. What else can I eliminate? Protracted. Okay, yes. So your correct answer, whatever you're left with, is seminal, which means it has become a landmark now in literature. And for the second blank, what could be my answer that I can straight away eliminate? Well, I can eliminate deconstructed, yes. Now, very commonly students get confused between touted and merited. Now, many people pick up merited as the right answer, which is not the right answer. It just says his achievements were recognized. So it's already talking about achievements. Somebody's achievements can't be merited, isn't it? The work can be merited. So the correct answer is touted. So your correct answers are seminal and touted. I hope this is clear. Right? So please understand the meaning very carefully and then go for the correct answers.
Right. And I think merit actually means to also deserve something, isn't it?
Yeah.
Getting something.
I mean, exactly. Exactly.
So yeah, guys, so yeah, we have a lot of other, some people have answered protracted, some people have answered deconstructed. Aman asked, because
yes, Aman.
Touted.
Yes, Aman.
Yeah. So a couple of things that I just drew from this one is that it's really important for us to understand the overall meaning of the sentence in this case, right? Kind of like
absolutely.
Right. And I think
and you see, whatever the important words which gave us the important meaning, we found it very commonly, very common words, isn't it? Now,
yeah,
virtually ignored when it was first published. So these give you a lot of insight about the sentence as a whole. And that helped us in understanding what the sentence is looking for.
Right. So that means, like, if we really look at it, it's not just we don't really often have to know all the vocabulary which is available there. Even if we understand the meaning and if we know the words which are definitely wrong, we could still arrive at the correct answer, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. That definitely makes it look a lot easier than it otherwise would. And I see what you mean by really getting the context. Let us move on to the next one thing that, makes most students feel really panicky, which is reading comprehension. And yeah, I've said there's quite a few on GRE. So is it something that students should feel intimidated about or not?
See, the thing is, reading comprehension is something that students have been doing since childhood, I think. I mean, they've been doing it in school also. It's just that the kind of passages that come on the GRE, and it's the time constraint really that catches up with the students. So if students know the art of reading well and what active reading, as we call it, then they should be able to understand what the passage is about and then be able to answer the questions. Now, there are some very common reading comprehension question types, right, which you will come across whether you're doing a short passage or a medium passage or a long passage, right? Long passages are kind of rare on the GRE, but you may come across one, especially in the second verbal section. But short medium passages between 15 to 20 lines or 20 to 30 lines are quite common, right? So those are the ones that people will come across most.
So could you kind of like, explain that with an example as well, how reading comprehension 2 can be simplified for the students to actually get to the answers fast as well? Sure.
So if you look at this, this is how the questions are going to look on the screen also. You have the passage on the left and the question on the right. And this is a very common question type that you will always get, the primary purpose of the passage. Now, obviously, the authors of these reading comprehension passages have taken a lot of trouble to write the passage for you. So they would want you to read the entire passage, hence the primary purpose question. And so you'll have to read the passage and understand what the passage is all about. Now, again, you will find that you don't really need to be an expert in that particular topic to be able to, decode the passage. Some very simple words, which we call transition words, can be used, right,
Okay.
to decode these passages. So if I just quickly read it, theorists are divided about the cause of Permian mass extinction, right? Now, it says theorists are divided. That means there are two schools of thought, right? And or there could be more than two schools of thought. If you look here, it says some hypothesize. So this is the first group. What do they think? What is the cause of Permian mass extinction? That the impact of a massive asteroid caused the sudden eradication of most species. So this is your first school of thought. And then you see, it says, however, that means whatever we are going to read now is going to be a contrast to whatever has been said so far. However, a look at the carbon isotopic record suggests that existing plants communities were decimated and revived several times. To produce such a pattern would require a succession of asteroid strikes thousands of years apart. So these two sentences is actually are two sentences where the author has doubted why this hypothesis may not be true, right? So there is one school of thought which said the asteroid caused the Permian mass extinction, but the author has given reasons why it could be otherwise. And then it says other theorists have proposed, so this is the second theory, that volcanic explosions raise the CO2 levels, leading to intense global warming. Right? This is the second theory. And then again, the author says one problem with this theory. So now again, the author is pointing out another problem with the theory, is that it cannot explain the mass marine extinctions at the end of the Permian period. And then it says a new theory. This is the third one you're seeing. Proposes that the combination of rising concentrations of toxic hydrogen sulfide in the world's oceans and gradual depletion in the surface waters caused the extinctions. Now the author says, fortunately, this theory is testable. So it's not really, we're not really sure whether the author likes this theory or not, but at least he likes the fact that the theory can be tested. It could at least give us some credible basis, right? And then he says, if this theory is true, then oceanic sediments from the Permian period will yield chemical evidence of a rise in hydrogen sulfide consuming bacteria. So if I just quickly summarize the passage, you've seen that the author describes various hypotheses. First one, asteroid could have caused it. Then he rejects it. He doesn't like it. He gives reasons. Then he says, okay, could be volcanic explosions that caused the Permian mass extinction. He rejects that also. He points out a problem with the theory. And then he says there is a new theory which has spoken about the hydrogen sulfide being the reason. This one, he says, he doesn't say this is a great theory, but he says this theory can be tested. So he kind of favors that if this theory can be tested properly, it could give us the correct reason. So now the question is, what is the primary purpose of the passage? Now, remember, when you are answering a primary purpose question, it has to be an overarching answer choice, an answer that covers the majority of the passage, not something that has been mentioned only in one portion of the passage. All right. So if you look at the answers, A says, consider several hypotheses concerning the cause of the Permian mass extinction. So guys, anybody, could you all tell me what do you think is the right answer? Okay, Hardik says C. So Hardik, my question to you is, C says propose the theories regarding the cause of the Permian mass extinctions be tested. He mentions about testing only the hydrogen sulfide theory. Does he really talk about the other two theories being tested? Not really, isn't it? So we cannot take C. Anybody else? Any other answer? Anurag says A. A says, consider several hypotheses regarding the cause of the Permian mass extinctions. Okay. Now, A is indeed the right answer because it clearly says consider several hypotheses, and we have seen several hypotheses concerning the cause. Now, I'll go to answer choices 4 and E because there were people who have mentioned that. 4 says, argue that Permian mass extinctions could not have been caused by a volcanic explosion. So now tell me, Abhay, you mentioned option 4, this one. Yes, volcanic explosions are mentioned, but is that the primary purpose of the passage? Yes, Anurag, you can say recycled language. It's just been taken from the passage and thrown at us. But that's not the primary purpose. Similarly, E, describe one reason that a rise in hydrogen sulfide would cause massive marine extinctions. Again, this is one of the theories, but not the primary purpose of the passage. That is not what the topic of the passage is trying to deal with, right? So can be eliminated. We can also look at B, discuss the strengths and weaknesses of the asteroid hypothesis concerning the cause of the Permian mass extinctions. Asteroid hypothesis is also one of the theories that have been discussed, but the purpose of the passage is to discuss all the hypotheses that are there regarding the cause. Hence, correct answer is E. So I hope this was clear.
Sean, that was really smooth, and it just took through the passage really fast. And I think, with the right kind of reading, and one most important thing is that a lot of people actually think about skipping the passage, going to the question and coming back to the passage, which you've clearly made it clear that that's not a very good approach to actually follow.
Absolutely.
So, to kind of like look at the entire test, we looked at specific question types and, specific kind of questions that appear on the GRE. But is time management challenging? Because I've heard a lot of students talk about how they ran out of time for the GRE verbal. Is there an overall kind of strategy that could be used to actually fix this problem?
See, the simplest thing is students have to identify what are their areas of strength and areas of weakness, right? Whatever are your strong areas, guys, that's where you have to quickly finish all the questions first. Every person has his own order of difficulty. If you are good at vocabulary, ensure that you finish all the vocabulary questions first so that you can spend more time on the more difficult questions. But if you waste time initially on a more difficult question, then you will lose out time on easier questions that you could have easily solved, and that will, in a hurry, you may make a mistake. So always, because GRE gives you the option to mark a question and move on to another question. So use it effectively. Mark, move on, come back to the question later. Get all the questions done, whichever you are really good at, finish them off first. That's my suggestion. And that has worked over the years.
Right. So Sean, in a very brief amount of time, you've actually covered a lot of aspects of the verbal bit. And I know you have, time is a little pressing for you, but I want to, thank you specifically for actually diving into these core areas and giving some insight to the students that it's not really that hard as it looks to score, let's say, a 160 above in verbal, if you do it the right way. So thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Sean. Let us now move on to the section a lot of you feel very super confident about, but often struggle with to get a perfect score, the GRE quantitative reasoning. So Ram, let's get started with the quant bit. My first question to you is, the quant inside out. What is the very first thing that a student must do if they do want to reach that perfect 170?
All right. Seema, am I audible?
Yes, absolutely. Loud and clear.
Okay. So the first and the foremost thing the student need to do is to know what is tested actually. When it comes to know what is tested, so you got to look at what are the topics that are tested in the math sections of GRE, probably the type of questions and their distribution in the test. The most important thing is you have to learn how to pace the test. Only this is going to fetch you a 170. Some people have the habit of, answering the question in the numerical order, the way the test makers have presented it, but that's not going to help anyway. There is a possibility of getting into a quicksand at some point, and then you might want to sort of think, oh, I've got my engineering degree, or I'm in the second or third year of engineering. I've got a great percentage in math. How can this question I'm not able to solve? Let me solve this question, then move on to the next one. No, that's not a great idea. All right. So people, at some point, you will get into the quicksand. So what you have to do is you have to carefully, when you have exhausted about a minute and 40 seconds or so, and you have not arrived at any answer, or none of the answers are closer to what you have got, probably you should get out of the quicksand. You will have to mark the question and move on and solve a few more questions that are going to follow. All right. So it is the most important thing. By this way, you're not wasting your time. You're taking care of your pacing. All right. So you might be wondering, will I be able to skip a question? Yes, that is possible in GRE. So within a section, okay, each quant section has got 20 questions in 35 minutes. So within a section, within the 35 minutes, you can move between questions back and forth. So if you come across a brick wall, just mark it and keep it for a review towards the end. That's the most important thing that you have to keep in mind. Then probably, you can reserve the harder ones, or the ones that really gave you some nightmares towards the end. Okay. I just want to show you one question where the conventional method would take quite a lot of time, whereas some strategies or some techniques would actually get you the answer so quickly. So let me share my screen, guys.
Right, Ram.
Seema, please confirm if my screen is visible. What do you see on my screen? I hope I'm sharing the right screen. Seema, you are muted.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I can see the presenter view.
Oops, sorry.
I think this.
One second.
So Yoginder, as Ram answered, there are actually 20 questions in each module. In the case of verbal, you will have 30 minutes to answer those 20 questions per module. And there would be two such modules, basically 2 sections in verbal and 2 sections in math. In the case of math, as Ram said, you will have 20 questions and 35 minutes to actually answer those questions. So to everybody else, Yoginder had sent a question, shot out a question to us for the same.
Seema, am I sharing the right one?
I'm still seeing the, can you check the display setting at the top?
I don't know, somehow.
You're still sharing the presenter view.
Still?
Yeah.
Just a minute.
So thank you guys for being a bit patient while we get this sorted out. Hardik had asked is usually this is the level of difficulty of reading comprehension in GRE. Hardik, it would vary. I mean, when you actually look at a single section, you would have varying difficulty levels. So as Sean initially talked about varying difficulty levels in terms of section adaptive nature, within the first section, there would be a mix of easy, medium, and hard questions. That would be the questions itself. That would be of varying difficulty. And when you, depending upon how you answer the first section, when you move on to the next one, then you would, let's say you perform really well in the first section, you will have slightly harder questions. And the level of reading comprehension could also vary in this regard. So I hope that answers your question, Hardik. And Ram, you got that fixed.
Finally.
Yes.
Okay, so I was about to tell you guys, this question is actually a time-consuming question. Hang on a second. I'm trying to get that pen. I don't know, something wrong with.
It always happens like that, isn't it? It just does not go your way.
So, okay. I've got the pen, by the way.
Perfect.
Right. So I'm sure many of you would want to, look at this question and try and see what have I learned in my past, in my school. So, and you might think of, okay, this looks something familiar in my 8th or 9th grade that I have to multiply this out by its conjugate, right? But that's going to take a pretty lot of time. Okay. So what you should guys do is ideally, just take it so simple. Just follow a very basic approach. So I would want you to go by step by step. So I'm going to keep the 4 as it is. And now I'm going to just ask you guys, what's the value of root 80? Can you give me an approximate value to the nearest integer? I'm not sure if I can see the chats.
I can tell you right now, nobody has answered. Hardik.
Yes, that's right. Okay, just keep the 9 there.
Jinka says 9.
Okay, now you guys might be wondering, okay, what is this all about? How am I going to sort of, get a value of this? Now, look at the numerator. We've got a 4, right? And look at the denominator. We've got something definitely more than 4. Okay. In fact, it's 9 plus 4 root 5. So, I mean, those, you guys, if you know square root of 5 is roughly about a 2, then you might say 9 plus 8, 17. So, if you look at 4 over 17, now these are the two things under the square root. I'm pretty sure that you have no confusion that 4 times 9 is 36. At the same time, I also, yes, I see a word neglect, okay? So this is not even a 1 whole, it is a decimal. It's some 0 point, maybe 2, blah, 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 okay? So now, if I overall look at this answer, how much I should be getting? I should be getting a square root of 36 equals, right, 6. Hardik, you nailed it. So now, if you look at these answer choices, guys, okay, so now the test makers are so good at, making us fall for these traps, which this is sort of replicates the format of the question given. This also replicates somewhat with some square roots and fractions, blah, 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 okay? But don't fall for the traps. Keep it simple. As I told you earlier, keep everything to your basics and see if you can do some, easier version of solution rather than going for the conventional ways, okay? So here, the answer is 6, right? All right. So,
Ram, one question that popped up into my head, and I'm sure for a lot of students as well, does a GRE quant test very diverse topics? Is it kind of like all-encompassing, or it tests certain specific, subset or, very clear category of topics?
Okay. As far as the GRE is concerned, they're very clear, they have identified only 4 topics for the GRE. The first and the foremost is the algebra. Algebra constitutes roughly about 30 to 40% of the questions. Then comes arithmetic, around 30%. geometry and charts, they share 15 to 20% each. Okay, so that's around 100%. Okay, so you will see more of algebra questions in different question formats.
Right. You know, the moment you told algebra, I had all of these variables and steps pop into my mind. And considering the fact that GRE has a very limited time for each section, would it not take forever?
Oh, you said it right. Okay, so if again you guys are going to follow some conventional ways, that is going to take hell lot of time. And solving so many algebra questions, when I say roughly 40%, that would be almost like 16 questions throughout the math sections. Okay, that's not an easy task. Okay, so you have to learn strategies. You have to unlearn all those that you have learned in your schools, maybe in colleges. So you can just keep the basics and then try to improvise by using the strategies. All right, so let's have a look at this example. So, oops, I'm sorry. All right, so Seema, do you want to do the favor? You're the official reader now.
I always feel very intimidated by math, to be very honest, but I will do this for you. The juice stall at the circus stocked just 2 brands of orange juice, Tetra packs. Brand A cost $1 per pack and brand B cost $1.5 per pack. Last week, brand A contributed to M% of the stall's revenue and accounted for 9% of the sales of juice Tetra packs. Which of the following expresses M in terms of N?
All right. So if you look at this question, kind of, it has got a lot of information. We've got the cost of brand A, cost of brand B, then some M%, N%. And the foremost thing that is missing in the problem is how many packets of brand A were sold? How many packets of brand B were sold? So if you are going to proceed with algebra, as Seema said, variables would be going around your head. So you would probably want to assume, let the number of brand A Tetra packs sold be X, and let the brand B numbers sold be Y. You see, this question has got already a lot of algebra with a couple of variables, and adding more variables to this question, my God, that is going to be a brick wall. You will certainly spend 4 to 5 minutes, and yet you may not arrive at the answers, and look at the ugly way of answers looking. Okay, so we should know an approach. So is there a better way to solve this? Absolutely yes. So that is what you're going to see, guys. So keep it simple. As I said, everything stick to your basics. So we know clearly that there are 2 brands of Tetra packs sold, brand A and brand B. The first thing is, I'm not sure how many of them sold. So what we can do is maybe just substitute a number, a nice and easy number, a 2-digit number. Can you guess? A 2-digit nice number. When I say nice, it has to be a multiple of, has anyone given numbers? Seema, you're on mute. My chat box somehow, something.
Okay. Ajinkya says 50, Anurag says 20, Sai says 66,
Oh.
says 10, question mark.
10. I love that 10. Yes. Keep it simple. All right. So let's say 10 packets of brand A and 10 packets of brand B were sold. All right. Now we know that cost of each packet, A is $1 and B is $1.5. So let's straight away go for the total revenue by selling these packs. Okay. So through brand A, what's the total revenue, guys? $10, right? And through
This
B,
is 10. Anurag says 150.
Yes, so 15, all right. Now, this question actually talks about the Stahl's revenue and the sales of juice Tetra Paks. So which sort of prompts me, probably we need the total number of, packets sold, which is 20, and the total revenue is 25, all right. So we have set our problem in a very simpler way, without X, Y, A, B, C, D, all that, okay? Just numbers, which would definitely, one thing is, you might feel that, okay, it's kind of taking time, okay, because this is not an easy question. So the question of this sort will appear in your second section if you do the first section very well. Just want to remind you what Sean said. It's a section adapter, GRE section adapter. So the first math section, the performance on the first math section completely is dependable on the second section. So if you do well in the first section, second section is going to be harder, and this could be one of the harder questions that you're going to get. So now let's go back to the question. So guys, I'm sure now you must have understood what is this M and N in the question. So let's just go back and see. Last week, brand A contributed M% of Stahl's revenue. So what's the Stahl's revenue, guys? Stahl's revenue is total revenue. That's 25, isn't it? And how much brand A has contributed? So that percent you will have to calculate. I'm sure you all are good at math, so I'm just straight away going and eliminating instead of asking. So M is 40, so 40%. Similarly, N, do you really need to work around? You see, and N% of the sales of juice Tetra Paks, which is nothing but, again, they're talking about brand A. Brand A contributed N% of sales of the packs. So which is nothing but 10 out of 20. 10 of 20 is nothing but 50-50, right? So our N value is 50. So now we have to read the last part of the question. Which of the following expresses M in terms of N? So basically what you have to find is the value of M. So let's find out the value of M. So how are we going to find the value of M? Using the value of N in the answer choices. So now let's do it quickly. So if I use N in the answer choice A, so I'm going to get 100 times 50, and my denominator is going to be 150 minus 50. So that's, everybody can actually calculate. So are we looking for a 50, guys? Not really, right? So that goes off. Now the second one, I'm sure you would have got it. So 200 times 50, and my denominator is going to be 200. It's just the same 50, which is not right. Let's look at the third one. Third one is a 200 times 50, and my denominator is going to be a 250. So now you can see that, okay, so 200 divided by 5, that's 40, all right? So we've got the answer. So C is definitely our answer. But just to ensure that we are not getting into any traps, we'll quickly check that last two options. 250 times 50, everything divided by a 400 minus 50, which is a 350. So now you can clearly see this is a kind of a decimal answer. So this cannot be an answer because 250 is not a multiple of 7. So I don't even have to calculate, cross it off. Similarly, the last choice is 300 times 50, everything divided by 450. Again, if we simplify, so again 300 over 9, I have to have 2 3s at the top for me to cancel out the 9. So this is again going to end up with a decimal, all right? So you must have seen, we would have taken about, about 3 to 4 minutes to solve the problem, because as a teacher, I have to explain you, that's taking time. When you, as a student, if you practice this technique, then eventually you should be able to solve it in, around 2 minutes, okay? So now, So this is one of the strategy, all right? Our R&D team has spent a lot of money by, asking our trainers, requesting our trainers to take the tests. We come up with, the questions that you have seen in the actual test, and then we develop a design the way how we can actually solve those questions in a simpler manner. Okay, so these techniques or strategies didn't pop up overnight. So we have spent lots and lots of money, in developing these strategies, Seema. All right.
Right. I mean, I think that's the beauty of the Princeton review strategy. I mean, in terms of, having that global connect where they are the international players who actually, completely understand the test from that perspective, as well as we really understanding as students also. To be honest, Ram, for somebody who's as math challenged as I am, that looked really simple. Now, you did mention geometry as a topic, and, I was just thinking, are there any really common or silly mistakes that students make in geometry, and what would be the best way to actually avoid those mistakes also?
Okay, so Seema, when it comes to geometry, most of the students, they feel that, they have to by heart almost all the formulas for all the shapes in the world, which is not possible. And you never know what these test makers are going to ask you. All right. So there is absolutely no need of knowing a lot of arcane formulas, which half of them you may not know why is this formula used and how it has, come up. So again, the simple thing is stick to your basics. When you see a complex shape, try to sort of break it into pieces. Probably, if you get a shape which is so complex, I'm sure most of you might have heard about dodecahedron. Okay, so who knows how many sides it has got. So for me to calculate either the area of that particular shape or perimeter, should I really know a formula? Not really. Okay, and in order to create a formula, the person who have actually worked on it might have taken days and months to develop a formula, because it's not easy. So what we are going to do is we're going to break it into pieces, like maybe triangles, squares, rectangles, those basic shapes we are good at. So that's what we're going to, in fact. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples quickly, how to deal with geometry. So this question, you guys can see a rectangular wooden crate has inside dimensions 3 meters by 4 meters by 12 meters. What's the length in meters of the longest straight inflexible rod of negligible diameter that can be placed within the crate? All right. So just keep these numbers in your mind. So obviously you can understand this is a 3-dimensional cuboid, a box. Well, so the dimensions remind me of a coffin with a scale factor of 2. Got it? Just double-sized coffin. Okay. So, and what is the question asking us? So find out the length of the rod that can be placed. Is it just the length? The longest. Again, there are very, very important words that you have to be careful. What is the longest length of the rod that can be placed within the crate? So first of all, if I have to solve this question, I have to memorize or know the super Pythagoras theorem. All right. Well, do I really need to know it? Not really. So let me just draw it in a simpler form. Okay.
Sorry.
Right. So
Anurag says diagonal, Ajinkya says 13.
All right. All right, guys. Yeah. So okay, so this is the model of the box. So the question is asking the length of the longest rod, from one top corner to the opposite bottom corner. I'm sure you must have got it. Okay. So those who know the super Pythagoras theorem, you should be able to, do it. Otherwise, you do it in 2 steps. For me, I'm not doing anything. Rather, what I'm going to do is look at the size of these. This is 4. this is 3, 4, and a 12. Now, the question is asking me the length of these dotted lines. Do you think the 5 and 7 are really going to work around the longest? Sima, do you want to guess? 5 and 7, aren't they too small? Because when I'm looking at length of these dotted lines, definitely that has to be longer than this 12. This length of
yes.
one of the sides, isn't it? So 5 and 7 are too small. And if you look at 19 and 24, they're too far big. Okay. So basically what I'm doing is these are like too small and these are large. So in fact, I did not do any geometry. What I did was just sort of made an estimated length of the rod, and then I started guessing. So that's what you see on the top, guesstimation.
Right. So Sai Satvik actually quoted 19, and why would that not be a in the guesstimate? Why would we actually get rid of it for his benefit?
You mean Sai has got it as 19?
Yeah.
Okay. Sai, I really don't want to show the actual way here because that's really going to take some time, but I'll just give you some tips. Okay. What you have to do is, first thing, these dotted lines actually, can be divided into two pieces. One is you find out the diagonal of this 3x4 rectangle. So the diagonal of 3x4 rectangle, it would be a 5. Then using this 5 and 12, you have to have another rectangle. So obviously, 5 and 12, when you have the sides, you will have a 13. Okay. Or you have a super Pythagoras theorem. Anybody? So super Pythagoras theorem is nothing but you can consider the sides as a square root of a square plus b square plus c square. You can do that also. All right. So these are like, if you know the formula, yes. But how many of the formulas? Who knows what kind of formula is required in my GRE test? Maybe Sai may come across this question. Maybe someone else may come across something else. So knowing all the formulas is not really possible.
So,
right?
what I understand is after when we practice quite a bit, we will be able to make this estimation a lot more accurately, right?
Of course. So this is again, people who find themselves, they get stuck with this question, doesn't know how to solve this question. They should really mark it and keep it towards the end. And in the end, if you're really running out of time, there is no way that you can do the actual calculation or the conventional method. Rather go for some guesses with little bit of estimation. Okay, that takes care of everything.
Right.
I want to show you one more example quickly again.
Okay.
Okay, so let me just quickly read the question. In the figure above, A, B, C, D, E is a regular pentagon. So everybody, what a pentagon is. Pentagon is a 5-sided shape, and regular means all sides are equal and all angles are the same. Let me just put this strokes so that all sides are equal, and of course all the angles are equal. I'm not putting it too much of information. So another information is arc AC is a section of circumference of a circle. So this arc AC, you can see, is a circumference of a circle at center B. So basically what they are saying is B is the center. So which means BC and AB are the radii, and they have given it as 10. So if this one side is 10, all the sides are supposed to be 10 because this pentagon is regular. All right. Now our focus, our question here is, what is the perimeter of the shaded region? So I told you guys, look at this shape. Do you know the name of the shape? This shape that is shaded? Don't know. So obviously you may not know the formula. Okay. We may not have the formula, first of all. So we have to do some simpler calculations. So maybe you have to find the area of the sector. Okay. So for that, you need to know the angle, this angle. So for a pentagon, what is the total angle and what are the individual angles, size of the individual angles? Now keep everything away. The way the answer choices are framed in your GRE test, we have to be eternally grateful for ETS. I'm going to show you why. Look, So basically, if I want to find the circumference of this shape, that's what they're asking, the perimeter of the shaded region. So this is a 10, this is another 10, so 10. So 10 plus 10 plus 10, which is 30, plus in GRE, any question that talks about circumference, arc length, then area, all those will be, attached to a pi. That's how they actually make the format of the answer choice. So there is some number and pi. This is a format. The format of the answer is this. So I'm not calculating anything. So I'm just using the format and I'm going to choose. So 30 plus some number here and then pi. Okay. So let's quickly go and see which of these 5 answer choices actually. So first one, you can see it is 20 plus some pi. I'm not even calculating. All right. That's not right. And this is 30 plus some pi. Okay. It kind of, matches it. So I'm going to keep it. All right. So the next one is again 20 plus some pi. Okay. That's gone. And the next one is 50 plus some pi. So that is out. The last one is 30 plus 30 pi. Okay. So I will just put the value of here also so that you can compare between the two. So we are left with 2 choices. I'm sorry. All right. So we are left with 2 choices that are left and which are actually matching the format of the answer choice here. Okay. Now, guys, can you guess between the two, which one is more appropriate? Do you think the arc length is going to be a 6 pi or a 30 pi? Any guesses? Keep in mind that the value of pi is approximately 3. Okay. We can do that. So tell me, is the arc length going to be 18 or 90? So 6 pi is nothing but closer to 18. 30 pi is about 90. Which one looks or makes sense? Any
Shubham
guesses?
says 6. Ajinkya says B.
Yes. So that is the answer. This is the answer. You got it. So here again, did I do a lot of geometry here? Absolutely no geometry, I can say. So only thing I need to understand what a radius is. The moment I found the radius, I know all the sides are going to be equal because it's a regular pentagon. And then I did not even, bother to calculate what is the angle in order for me to find the arc length using the angle, blah, 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 nothing. Very basics. What did I actually do? I just sort of capitalized the format that ETS uses. That's why I told you we are thankful to ETS.
All right. That makes almost want to start doing geometry questions because that looks so simple. So in the last 2 question sets, you've actually shown how we can really beat time by following simpler approaches. But what I want to know is, in spite of the approaches, are there questions which will still eat away into a student's exam time?
Oh, yes. I think from our group of participants also, if you put upon this question, everybody would say charts. Yes. So why charts? Are the questions really hard? Actually not. Okay. And can I just skip charts? This is what most of the students actually ask quant trainers. So, I mean, if you skip chart questions constitute 3 to 4 in a section. So which is like 6 to 7 questions in the entire test. That would sort of really, penalize your score. Okay. So now, why are these chart questions really, sort of, I would say boring. Okay. So why is it boring? Because they would sort of compare the chart questions with a reading comprehension question. So they feel that, in a reading comprehension question, I have to read a big passage and then try to understand what's given, then go and answer. It's very similar to, a reading comprehension question. So in a chart question, you will usually see a format with a chart or a couple of charts and a question. Now, in a normal question other than charts, all the information will be stacked into the question so that you don't have to really, go and look for data. Every data is sort of built in the question. So just read the question maybe once, quickly twice, then try to understand, solve it. But charts, the problem is, if you read the question, maybe some data would be provided in the question, but there are a couple of charts given. So you have to go and find more data from the charts or graphs, and then combine both the data together to answer the question. That is really going to be, a nightmare. So
right. So do we have an efficient way of solving this particular problem?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I would say very, very, in order to solve a chart question, I know that, again, chart questions are time consuming, but then again, they're not difficult at all. Again, if you find chart questions are your nightmares, just mark those questions, 2 or 3 questions, and then do them at the last, because usually the chart questions comes in the numbers 15, question number 15, 16, 17. Probably you can, keep them for the later work. So you finish off the 18, 19, 20, and then come back. All right. Now, there are just 3 basic steps that you have to follow. So they are, the first one, you've got to read the title of the chart. That's important, because why I'm saying you have to read the title of the chart is sometimes there might be 2 charts given. Okay. So the question can just maybe connect with one chart or maybe both together. So it's better to read the title of the chart, because 2 different charts will talk about 2 different information. Read the title of the chart, then the X and Y, you have to look for the labels that are given on the X and Y axis. In chart 1, you may be seeing X axis having numbers given in thousands, whereas in chart 2, you will see numbers given in millions. So you have to be careful. Either you have to convert the millions to thousands or thousands to millions, depending on what the question is asking. So you have to read the chart and then read the labels of the X and Y axis. Finally, if there are any legends, you have to just go and look at it. Okay. This is step number 1. So you will spend some time reading the chart. So, each question will not be attached with a different chart. It would be just one chart, and then there are 3 questions that would follow. All right.
Okay.
So, once you have understood the chart, you don't have to look into each number. For example, then maybe city A, city B, city C have populations of 2.8 million, then 5.6 million. Those numbers are not really required when you're going through the chart. Going through the chart is getting a rough understanding of, okay, what the charts are talking about. All right. Now go to the question and see carefully so is it talking about C's population with respect to density, blah, blah, blah. So now after reading the question, you will have an idea. Okay, probably, I may require just the chart 2 for this particular question. So connect with the chart 2 again, see how you can calculate. Again, as I said, the numbers may be too large. So you might be tempted to use your calculator. The calculator that's provided in GRE math section, it's a very basic calculator. You can just do the 4 basic operations. Okay, the addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Apart from that, you don't have the access to the scientific calculator. All right. So which means it is better. Again, you think of going for an approximation. Normally, the answers are widely spread. So in that case, you should go for an approximation. Of course, if you have the time, I'm not going to stop you, but remember the calculator given in GRE is not, it's a clunky one. All right. So you have to sort of see if you can do it manually with some approximation. Well and good, because the answer choices are widely spread. Some kind of approximation will definitely help you. So if you follow these basic steps, I'm sure you should be able to get these chart questions.
Right. So, from all of these things, I've understood one particular aspect, actually. What I've not heard you talk about is when you say hard questions, they don't mean permutation and combination or probability or calculus or integration and trigonometry.
Yes. So again, a lot of students, even after completing the course, a GRE course with us and taken a few practice tests, they somehow get obsessed with, the permutation, combinations, and the probability. So Seema, the other three topics that you were saying, integration, calculus, and trigonometry,
Right.
they are not even part of GRE math. Okay. All these are like, myths. Okay. So permutation and combination. So when students have completed their course, now they've started practicing the tests. And when they come to us, sir, I'm so good at algebra, arithmetic, geometry, and even charts. I've mastered. Now, these two topics are really troubling me. So what do I do, sir? So I tell them very simple. So first of all, these topics are seldom tested in GRE. Even, if at all you see one or two questions in the entire test, they will just test the basics of these, okay? And our course, Seema, covers the basics and even super hard questions also on this, okay? Just to ensure that the student, don't come up with any hard question in the GRE. So far, we have not seen any very basic questions, maybe to a mediocre. Now, these topics, as I said, probability and permutation, these topics are not at all friendlier for test makers because they cannot really make hard questions using these topics. These topics, they can test only basic concepts. So they are much more interested in topics like algebra, arithmetic. Those are like, so friendly for them, where they can, everybody must have seen Juice Tetra Pak question, which was super hard. Okay. So they would rather, so what we have to do is, we should not be overconfident that I'm so good at algebra, arithmetic, and geometry. So most of the students who come to us, that they are so good at it, only they are lacking these probability and permutation. So first you have to master these, okay? I actually send them away asking them, you get everything right on these, because getting a 170 is actually possible. And if you ask me, do I have to answer all the questions right in order to get a 170 in quant section? It depends, okay? Depends on the overall difficulty of the entire test. I've seen students slipping off one question, that is making a mistake. They have lost 1 point, ended up with 169. But I've also seen students who have taken, again, made one mistake, but they have got a 170. It all depends on, ETS and their scoring algorithm, everything. All right. So every student, when they complete a GRE test, when the official score report comes in after 15 days, you will have access to the diagnostic score report. If you have not done well, if you really wanted to see whether you have performed well or not in particular areas, you can go ahead, and it's a free report, which is available on the homepage of the ETS website. You can go ahead and do check where you have gone wrong, where you have made a mistake, all that analysis you can do, right? Seema, you're on mute.
I keep doing this, don't I? I keep putting myself on mute and talking with a lot of passion. So I was saying, first of all, thank you so much, Ram. That was really detailed. And as I told you, that made it even easy for me to understand a lot of aspects. And I'm sure with the Princeton Review advantage of very high quality study resources, very unique strategies that we use to simplify questions, and of course, experts like you and Sean to guide the students, they should not really find it difficult at all to score a 320 and above. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Seema. I really enjoyed this panel-styled webinar. I'm looking forward to do quite a many. Thank you.
Right, and I thank all the participants who have been actually in here. And if you have any further questions, as shared, I'm just a moment, I'm sharing the number that you can reach out to. And Ram, if you could share the last slide as well, you can actually take down the number.
I'm doing it.
Right. So if you go onto the Manya website, you would be also able to actually book a demo with us. There is demo booking option, which is available on our website. So you'll be able to take an entire session with our Manya experts. Besides that, if you want to talk to an expert from an admissions perspective, you can do so as well by giving us a call on this number. So to everybody who's been a part of this webinar, a big thank you, and thank you for being very patient. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Bye. Shubham, thank you. So that's it from us, guys. Bye-bye.